Welcome back to Old School Sports and our OOTP 23 playthrough of the Pittsburgh Pirates. We are about to begin the 2046 season, and one positive thing I can say about the Pirates and our playthrough as we head into our ninth season as general manager of the Pirates is that we're in the best financial position we've ever been. That's still not that great, though. We're 26th in the league in budget, 27th in player payroll. But we do have the highest fan interest that we've ever had, despite trading away our longtime superstar Isaiah Hill this offseason as he was making too much money for us to afford. Fan loyalty of poor is actually the best that we've ever had. It used to be pathetic for most of this playthrough. And we've got a couple $1,000,000 to potentially take on some contracts as we get closer to the trade deadline. We've also been able to raise our ticket price based on the strong fan interest and 5 consecutive playoff appearances. And we're selling a lot more season tickets than last year, expected to be sold out most days and ultimately make a lot more revenue per game. So if the season goes well and the team performs well on the field, could be a pivotal year in the history of this Pirates franchise. Pitching staff, once again, expected to be a strength. We have Luis Longoria, our ace, back, and we traded for a second ace in the youngster Sean Street from Oakland, right-hander and a left-hander heading the top of our rotation. And with Gonzalez and Rojas, the veterans, and then the youngster Sal Valadez, really like our rotation, really like our bullpen as well. A lot of familiar names who have been with the team for the last several years in the bullpen at this point. The lineup is going to be a little different. When we did trade away Isaiah Hill, we got Juan Castillo back. He's going to be playing second base, shortstop for us at some times. Not an incredible prospect, but 26 years old. A lot cheaper than Isaiah Hill was, a competent defensive player who looks like he still could get a little bit better with the bat. Chris Rodriguez is a guy who's been coming up in our system for years. Drafted him in the second round back in 2039. Finally going to make his major league debut this year as our backup catcher. And then the other kind of new additions are Joel Fields, who was up briefly towards the end of last season. Going to see what he can do being up with the big club for the full year. But clearly, when you just look at the star ratings, when you just look at the power ratings, when you just look at the contact ratings of the crew that we have here, it is a fair criticism and a fair comment that I know some of you have shared that you're wondering how we're going to score our runs. And I kind of wonder the same thing. This is going to be a good test of whether or not we can win with pitching and defense, because our pitching will be good. And by and large, our defensive players are pretty solid. But offensively, we are definitely lacking, particularly in power. And we are also very right-handed centric in terms of our bats, particularly while our starting first baseman, Luis Flores, is out with a strained ab. When he comes back, he will give us another left-handed bat who is a competent major league hitter, but he is fragile in terms of his injury proneness. He is always seeming to be hurt. We've had him for 4 years since we picked him up in the Rule 5 draft, and he's never played 80 games in a season. Always seems to suffer a pretty significant injury, and clearly he's starting this year on the IL, so it doesn't seem like anything is different here. So I think our pitching will be really good. I think our defense will be pretty good. The question is how many runs we're going to be able to score. Let's see what the predictions are for this team. And they're predicting us to go 96-66, which would win the NL Central for a second consecutive season. They see us scoring 735 runs, which is reasonably respectable, and only allowing 582 runs, which would be exceptional. The Mets have been one of the teams that's consistently had a better pitching staff than us in recent years. And at least this playthrough suggests that we're going to have an even better pitching staff than them, which would be fantastic. Not surprisingly, when you look at the expected top hitters, nobody from Pittsburgh on the list, but there is some thought that our top 3 starters, Longoria, Sean Street, and Bobby Gonzalez, could all have pretty good years for us. And if they stay healthy and have big seasons, that would be an important step towards us hopefully winning the AL Central for a second straight year and making the playoffs for a sixth straight season, and hopefully doing a little more damage in the playoffs than we have in recent years. And the season's off to a real nice start for the Pirates. 8-2 record here in the early stages of April. You can see we're already up 3 by the Cardinals here in the NL Central. I just want to check in quickly, see how we're doing in terms of attendance, and we have sold out our first few games. We'll see how the next couple weeks go before potentially giving ticket prices another bump. But if we remain successful on the field and fan interest remains pretty high, definitely a potential sign that we can bump prices up a bit and generate some even more revenue for Mr. Nutting, who, as you know, if you've been watching, is a penny pinching owner who's made our lives a little tricky at times. And he's also got some pretty ambitious goals for this year. He wants us to win the championship by next year. Wants us to upgrade at catcher this year, which we did not. But even though he said win the championship in 2047, when he did give us his pep talk, so to speak, for the season, he expects us to win it all this year also, despite the fact that we are in the bottom, not quite decile, bottom decile in player payroll, the bottom sixth of the team and sixth of the league in our budget. But he has very high aspirations for our team, despite not necessarily being willing to invest tons of money into it. And the Pirates continuing to play well with a 14-6 record 20 games into the year. Perhaps not surprisingly, Luis Flores still not able to bounce back from that strained ab. His return is now uncertain at this point. So we're hanging in there at this point, more than hanging in there in terms of our offensive production and our performance on the field, but clearly would love to have his bat back in the lineup sooner rather than later. Doesn't seem like that's going to be the case, however. In a rare and completely irrelevant victory for the Pirates, but the weekly power rankings here with our 16-7 record, we rank number 1 in all of baseball, head of our old team, the Kansas City Royals. The Pirates, as you can see, first in ERA, fourth in strikeouts, seventh in defensive efficiency, but in all of baseball, we're 24th in runs and 29th in home runs. So certainly feels like the offense could potentially be the problem that we fear it may be. And the first month of the season is in the books, and our Pirates with a 20-10 record have the best record in baseball. You can see the NL Central pretty tough. The worst team is the Cardinals, who were a playoff team last year, and they are just 14-16. Everyone else has a winning record in the division, including ourselves. So although we have the best record in baseball, only a 3.5 game lead on the Cubs for the division. Not surprisingly, you don't see a lot of Pirates players listed among the league leaders. In fact, you don't see any Pirates players listed among the league leaders in terms of batting categories. But pitching-wise, Sal Valadez in his second season off to a nice start, 3-1 record, 1.60 ERA. Jose Montoya with 5 wins out of the bullpen. Luis Longoria tied for the league lead in strikeouts. He's 2-1 with a 3.29 ERA. Ricky Rios leading the league with 11 saves. And our new addition, Sean Street, only a 3-3 record, but leads the National League in pitcher WAR at 1.5 already, just a month into the season. So nice to see 5 different names among the Pirates pitching staff, among the league leaders in the early stages of this season. And good news, Luis Flores is finally healthy, eligible to come off of the IL. He's been out for a while at this point, though. Got injured back on the 17th of March, so it's been about 6 weeks. Didn't get a complete spring training. So we are going to send him on a rehab assignment for probably a week or so. Make sure that he's completely healthy, shake a little of the rust off, hopefully, and then we'll hopefully have him back in our lineup. And again, as we talked about earlier, a left-handed bat, which we need, and a guy who, when he's been in the lineup for us, has been a pretty productive offensive player. As we talked about, he's never even played 80 games in a season, but has put up a 128 OPS plus and a 126 WRC plus when he has been in the lineup, with a batting average of close to 300. So certainly someone that could hopefully help, I don't want to say reinvigorate, but invigorate this offense that probably needs a little help. We can check in on the full stats here now that we're more than a month into the season. And not surprisingly, we're tied for 12th in runs scored. Offense just not very good, but dominant pitching staff so far. First in the National League in almost every pitching category. And our defense has actually kind of only been middle of the road, a little surprising there. But the pitching has been great. The offense has been weak, but it still has added up to a 20-12 record, or a 22-10 record, which is 2 games better than our Pythagorean expectations. But a nice April, and we're off to a pretty good start in May in a very small sample size. And the good news as we move on into the early stages of May is that we're not selling out every game, but we only got about 190 seats empty on average, so that's positive. Surprisingly, with a 667 winning percentage and easily being in first place, fan interest has actually fallen by 3 points already this season. So makes me a little leery of raising the ticket prices. If you've been watching for a while, you know that I like to hold myself to only modify the ticket prices once a year and not totally game the system. I think I'm still gonna, kind of see what happens a little bit over the next month or two before potentially making a move to the ticket prices this year. But those of you who have suggested I could probably be a little more flexible with that, particularly given the difficult situation that nutting puts me in. I have heard what you said, and actually, I'm going to agree with what you say. I'm going to make a small increase in the ticket price to $21. Not the most exciting move in the world, but we're playing incredible baseball, and we are selling out every game. So got to try to generate as much revenue as we can. And checking in on Luis Flores, he has played 6 games in AAA, only batting 200 down there. So we'll probably give him this weekend down there. Maybe he'll be a little better over the next couple of days, and then probably look to bring him up at the beginning of this coming week. And Flores did hit a little better over the weekend, collecting 3 hits in his last 3 games, getting his batting average up to 226. So hopefully he is ready to contribute at the major league level. As we've talked about, our offense has been pretty weak, so it's just a matter of deciding who we're going to send down to make some space for him on this roster. And this surprises me a little bit, but I am actually going to send down the young outfielder Joel Fields. He's definitely struggled, hitting just a $192, and he's had 156 at-bats. He's been playing pretty regularly as our DH. But you can see he's still got growth as far as his contact, his home run power, avoiding strikeouts. And I think with Flores back up, he's potentially going to get even less playing time because David Green has actually been hitting. The youngster hitting 267. He's a better player defensively. And I think we'll kind of look to piece together the designated hitter position with the guys that we have. But with Fields not hitting much, we're going to send him down to AAA. Hopefully he can get a little more seasoning there. What also worked against Fields was he's one of the few players on our team who didn't need to clear waivers, so that also made his roster spot a little more in jeopardy. But we'll see how things go. You can see just based on the star ratings. Again, I know it's a very blunt tool, but Flores is one of the more talented all-around players on our team. Gives us another left-handed bat in the lineup, and he is a pretty good batting average hitter. So hopefully he can help jumpstart this offense over the second half of the month of May. And we just had to place David Green on the IL. Back spasms going to have a moderate impact on him for a week, and actually did not bring Joel Fields back. We are going to let another rookie make his debut. Danny Calez, who was our third-round pick back in 2040, looks, close to ready. Similar to Fields, there's still areas that he could improve. But he's been hitting .299 in AAA. Only one home run, a bit surprisingly, but still batting close to 300 down there. Gives us another left-handed bat, at least for a short period of time. So feel that he can hopefully add some value coming off of the bench at the major league level. Opportunity to see how one of our top prospects in AAA does. Julio Castillo is another guy that we could see very soon. Again, a bat that's close to ready. Pretty versatile defensive player. Was kind of drafted as an outfielder. He's now viewed as was kind of signed as an international free agent signing as an outfielder. He's viewed as the number 15 prospect in baseball. But when you look at his ratings, he can play the infield reasonably well, except he doesn't have a great arm, and he can play all three outfield positions. So just a matter of time till I think we'll be seeing what he can do at the major league level also. And in the least surprising news of the day, Luis Flores hurt again, strained ab, going to be out for 6 to 7 weeks. Only had him in 7 games. Did hit .250 with a triple. Drove in only 1 run, though, so he wasn't even particularly effective offensively. But still definitely a loss that he is gone. Again, he still has fragile injury proneness now. Who knows what it'll look like after this next injury, but guy who just has had a real hard time staying healthy. And finding a first baseman may be something that we want to think about as we get closer to the trade deadline, because that's a position where there's a lot of people that can play it defensively, can probably find a pretty decent bat, and not necessarily going to have to pay a ton for a first baseman, particularly if it's an older player or someone in the last year of his contract. So Flores headed back to the injury list, and we'll see who we decide to bring up to take his spot on the roster. And thought about bringing up Julio Castillo, but he is only hitting .230 in his first action at the AAA level. Joel Fields has 7 runs batted in his first 8 games in AAA, so we're going to bring him back up at least for a little time period. David Green will be coming off the IL in about a week, hopefully, so may not be a long stint back in the majors for Mr. Fields, but it will at least give him another brief cup of coffee with the big club over here the final week or so in May. And David Green ready to come off of the IL, so that means we've got to send somebody down. Joel Fields has the batting average at the major league level up to $198, but because the left-handed hitter Danny Calez has hit .278 in 18 at-bats, I think we're going to keep the left-handed youngster up, send Fields back down to AAA to open up a spot on the roster for Mr. Green. And we've made it to June 1st, another month in the books for these Pirates. You can see we've only got a 1-game lead over the Brewers in the NL Central. Our 36-21 record is the second best in the NL behind the Mets, and the second best in baseball for all of that matter. Similarly to a month ago, not really any of our players among the league leaders in batting, but Sal Valadez still having a great season, 5-2 record, 1.98 ERA, second best in the National League. Luis Longoria third in strikeouts now, and Ricky Rios still leading the National League in saves. Dig into the standings or the stats a little bit deeper. 13th in runs scored, but we're still first in the vast majority of pitching categories, and our defense is now second in both defensive efficiency and zone rating. So definitely trying to win with pitching and defense. Can see we were not quite as good in May as we were in April, but still a 16-11 record, still outperforming our Pythagorean expectations by 2 games. Have the great record of 22-8 at home. I think this shows, just how difficult it is with the Pirates. We're playing 632 baseball. We're in first place, and we're selling out almost every game. And our fan interest has still contracted 7 points over the course of the year from the 94 that it started at. So it's kind of depressing. I don't know what we can do better. I guess we could be playing 700 baseball instead of 632 baseball, but for the 28th player payroll in the game, I think we're doing pretty well. And it's a little disheartening that the Pirates fans' interest in us is waning already, even though we haven't even gotten to the summer yet. And because of that, or I don't know if it's because of that, but we're going to crank the ticket price up another $1 to $22. Try to take advantage of the high fan interest for as long as we've got it. Eventually we'll probably get to a point of diminishing returns, but clearly not there yet. And a small bit of good news out of the first base position. David Green, the young first baseman, National League Player of the Week, hit 500 for the week, 14 homers and 28 at-bats, including a couple of dingers, 10 runs driven in, 4 runs scored. So nice to see him producing in the absence of Flores. Looking at the standings here, we're still playing very well. We only have a half-game lead on Milwaukee, though, and we've got a 4-game series with the Brewers coming up at home. So definitely will be an opportunity for us to get a little bit of breathing room against the strong Brewers, or from their perspective, it's their chance to get past us in the standings. And we ended up doing well against Milwaukee. We lost the first game, but then took the next 4 of the series. Unfortunately, we lost 2 out of 3 in Boston, but we're still I guess we're in the same spot now, because we've lost 2 in a row and Milwaukee's lost 3 in a row, or Milwaukee's won 3 in a row. So we're only a half a game ahead of Milwaukee, even though we took 3 of 4 when we were heads up against them because of our modest struggles against the Red Sox. And we've made it to the midway point of the season. The 50-31 record, certainly very good. We're now half a game behind the Brewers, though, as they are also playing some really impressive ball this season. Got our midseason review from Robert Nutting. Happy that we're in position to make the postseason. Unhappy that we haven't upgraded at catcher. Overall, he's happy with our performance, though. Have a few expiring contracts we'll want to think about. The season's been good. The offense has not been. Not a shock. Gonna have to figure out what to do with Mr. Flores when he is ready to come off of the IL, which hopefully is only going to be in a week or 2 from now. So could look to maybe flip him for someone who can help. I did take a look at the trade market for him a couple of weeks ago with some impressive pitchers we could get. The issue is that our pitching is not the issue. And when I did check in on the trade block, there was still nothing all that exciting as far as offensive players. Looks like a few higher level players now available, but Esteban Montemayor, nice defensive player, not much of an offensive player. Alex Carbajal, left fielder. Bat with some power, can play first base. Bat's lefty, making a ton of money, but presumably Ooh, he's wrecked physically. Presumably the Astros would be willing to hang on to a good chunk of it to get him off the books, I would think. But no one that exciting available right now. I may actually just search quickly, just see what's out there in terms of first baseman with big time bats, because that could certainly be what we need. And if we move David Green, as well as he's played, back into kind of a utility role, that's a pretty good spot for him. You can see we're going for the best of the best, people that are just good across the board, that can play first. Most of these guys, not surprisingly, making a ton of money. Even Lupe Zelaya, I'm guessing he's got a big contract down the line too. So if one of these guys was at the end of his contract, might have a chance of getting them. But Raimundo Beltrametti, he would be a nice bat to add. The youngster, hitting just 272. Not that 272 is bad. 14 home runs, 283 at bats. He's an outfielder right now, but wouldn't really love playing him at first base, but certainly would love to get that bat. But I'm sure they're looking for a lot for him. So maybe up our defensive expectations for a first baseman and lower our offensive expectations a notch and just see what's out there. A few different players now. Jose Cuevas from the Nationals is a guy who looks like he's got a respectable bat. Led the league in at-bats once, doubles once, hitting 273. Not a lot of power, though, as a first baseman, but he would certainly be attainable. Julio Salgado of the Angels, really like the bat. Wrecked physically, left-handed bat, which we could use, making a ton of money. You know, unless the Angels wanted to just dump him, I just don't see how we could possibly add him. Having a rough year so far, hitting only 233, but he does have 20 home runs. Guy who walks a lot. He'd certainly be a nice bat to add. Bobby Brito from the Red Sox, pretty good power. He is durable. He's got a few years left. I just don't think we're going to be able to take on any of these big-time contracts. Juan Valderrama from the Yankees, good personality, making a lot of money, though. We would need the Yankees to hold on to a big chunk of his contract to have this make sense. And just don't think there's anyone that we really want to chase after right now. I do want to check in on our old buddy Isaiah Hill, though, and see how he's doing in his new surroundings with the Dodgers. Hitting 272, 24 homers, 61 runs driven in, 2 WAR already, 130 OPS plus, 130 WRC plus. So the kind of slow decline that he's been on with us looks like it's kind of continuing. Still would love to have that bat in our lineup. It would certainly help us, but think it was the right decision to get out from under that $29 million for this upcoming season, especially given that number is just going to get bigger over the next couple of years. But with the offensive struggles that we have been having, certainly would have been nice to have that bat still in the middle of our batting order. And we've now made it to the month of July, Sunday, July 1st. You can see fan interest, despite the fact that the Pirates are 54-31 and back into first place by a game and a half over the Brewers, playing just some incredible baseball. But our fan interest is still contracted by 12 points over the course of the season. It's just crazy. The good news is that we keep selling out, so I'm going to bump ticket prices up another $1 to $23. Trying to generate as much revenue as we possibly can while the getting is good. Payroll down to second to last in baseball at this point. I don't know what more we can do to make the Pirates interested in our team. I guess one thing that we could do is score some runs because we are still not very good at that. We knew we were going to have to win with pitching and defense, and right now we remain first or second in almost every pitching and defensive category. Runs scored, though, we're 12th. Did have another good month in the month of June, 18-10 record. So we're playing really well. But I do feel like we've got to figure out a way to get a bat to help us. Taking a look at the pitching staff, Longoria is only 3-5 with a 3.34 ERA. Sean Street only 7-7 with a 4.26 ERA. But you can see that our 3, 4, and 5 starters all have winning records. Sal Valadez has been great, 9-3 with a 2.12 ERA for the second-year player, his third year of major league experience, but it was just a cup of coffee in 2044. Ricky Rios has been excellent, 25 saves, a .82 ERA. Greg Gaylord, 0.33 ERA. Juan Bin Daoud in middle relief, 4.25 ERA. Jose Montoya, we talked earlier about him getting a lot of wins early, 7-1 now. That slider just hasn't developed. Probably not going to develop at the age of 28. So Montoya at this point is just a nice bullpen arm. Juan Bin Daoud, slider there, also not really developing. So looks like he may just end up as a nice bullpen arm rather than a starter, as we had hoped he could be at one point. And then the lefties, Mike Wright and Danny Robles, have been pretty respectable. But when we take a look at the batting, that's where we've got some holes to fill, that's for sure. Juan Castillo, this is actually good news. The guy that we brought over in the trade for Isaiah Hill has been one of our top offensive players this year, hitting .293, 16 homers, 46 ribbies already. We did hold out some hope that his bat was going to be better than what he had done his first 2 years in the majors, and it looks like he's kind of reached his potential at this point. But with that glove, that defensive versatility, and a respectable bat, think that he was not a bad return, given that we kind of had to get out from under that Isaiah Hill contract. Alex Racho, the young right fielder, second on the team in WAR, hitting just .253, does have 16 doubles and 10 homers. So he's been a reasonably productive player for us. Third baseman Willie Medrano, .254 with 11 homers. Center fielder Arturo Arellano, .271 with 10 homers. And left fielder Henry Gonzalez, .269, but only 5 homers and 20 runs driven in. So this is a guy who has been a 2-time All-Star, a Rookie of the Year, and playoff series MVP, and he's not yet 27 years old. But as a number 1 overall draft pick, certainly would be expecting at this point in his 4th year in the majors that more than a .269 batting average with 5 homers and 245 at-bats. Still a useful offensive player because he walks a ton, on-base percentage close to 400. He's one of 5 guys on the team with a WAR of over 1, but definitely has not been as productive as we would have hoped. David Green, in contrast, is a guy that we picked up the year after we picked up Gonzalez, number 1 overall. Got Green in the 5th round of the draft last year. Thought he looked like he could be a useful utility player for us, and that's exactly what he's become, hitting .310, not a ton of power either, but a pretty versatile player, can bunt a little, can run a little, can play a lot of positions defensively for us, even though he's been plugged in most frequently as first base this year with the injuries to Flores. Bobby Guzman, second baseman, not playing as much since we've got Juan Castillo on board now, but has been reasonably productive, .317 batting average in 142 at-bats. Tony Cota at shortstop, he hits .250. He's pretty valuable with his good glove. Danny Calez, the youngster, .261, 5 homers and 92 ribbies. Chris Rodriguez hitting just .200 as a backup catcher, and Nelson Ibarra hitting just .213 as a starting catcher. Juan Rivera, the utility infielder, only has 12 at-bats on the year. Ramon Herrera getting a little bit of action as a utility outfielder, and then Ethan Fox not hitting all that much as one of our utility infielders. So definitely are areas where we can improve the offense, and that's something that we're really going to need to focus on in our next episode when we dig into the draft and approach the trade deadline, because I do feel like we've got a pretty special pitching staff together this year. We've got good defense. Could be our last year of Luis Longoria, given that the arbitration number for him is going to be about $17 million next year. So we want to take advantage of the pitching and defense we have this season while we can, and potentially bringing on someone who can hit over the next month before the trade deadline, I think is a big goal that we're going to have to try to focus on in our next episode. But before then, we're going to take a quick look at the international amateurs who are now out there. Certainly only a couple of the bats really stand out. Center fielder Nelson Gallegos, like the durability. Looks like he could have a pretty interesting bat, enough speed, mixed personality, but looks like he can hit. Juan Valdiva, catcher. Love the catcher ability, don't love the arm, good work ethic. Not the greatest hitter in the world. He's very young, not even 16 years old yet. See if there's any pitchers that look more interesting. Doesn't look like the most incredible year for international amateur free agents, unfortunately. I'll look through a couple of these other batters and pitchers, but just don't think there's a ton here. And I think Nelson Gallegos is definitely the class of this international amateur free agent crop. So we'll go ahead and make him a $5 million offer. He doesn't accept it. I don't know if there's anyone that we really want to chase after. The only other player that interested me a little bit was Alfredo Gallegos, who's actually just a relief pitcher, but a lefty reliever who's durable, pretty decent personality, 16 years old, throwing in the low 90s already. Looks like he could have a decent fastball and cutter. Looks like he could be a useful bullpen arm. He's someone I may look at in a few days if things don't work out with Gallegos. But other than that, I don't really love any of these prospects. That said, it's been a really nice start to the season for the Pirates, 54-31. Been in first place most of the season, but looks like we could have a pretty big battle brewing with the Brewers. Everyone else is pretty far back at this point, so it looks like potentially a two-team race in the NL Central here at the beginning of July, but it only takes a week or so and that can change. The Mets with their great pitching staff showing off with the best record in baseball, the one team that's got a better record than the Pirates at this point. So will we face them again in the playoffs, and can we potentially get past them? We'll find all that out in our upcoming episodes. But right now, it's been a good start so far. I know the offense and hitting are not what we need. When we come back in our next episode and dig deep into the month of July, finding someone in the trade market who can give our offense a boost is going to be our primary goal. And, the way I'm thinking about things, we do, as you may remember from our previous episode, have some pretty talented pitchers down in AAA right now. We had to demote just to make room Bobby Astorga, who's 7-6 with a 3.16 ERA down there. Ethan Mingo hasn't pitched as well, but he's an established major league pitcher. And Felix Bath down there hasn't pitched well this year, but is still a guy who could be a contributor. And then most importantly, Alex Arroyo, who's going to be a big part of our rotation, hopefully in the not-so-distant future, wants to be in the majors, and he's 9-6 with a 3.41 ERA. So my point is that we've got some arms there that can help us. So if we need to trade away, particularly the guys like Montoya and Bin Daoud that we thought might be starters that we're pretty confident are just relievers at this point, Again, we're not going to get as much in return for a good reliever than we would get for a good starter. But if we have to trade away some pitching, even if it's quality major league pitching, to find some help for our offense, I think we definitely have the capacity to do that before we get to the trade deadline. And that will be a big focus of ours in the next episode. Until then, thanks so much for watching and hope you have a great day.